Hello, my friends. On today's episode, I'm talking with Mr. Mark Fisher, and we're talking about leadership. This is a topic many of you asked us to talk more about on this podcast, so we are. And I'm sharing one of my favorite leadership frameworks that helps you figure out what your leadership style is, what your approach to leadership is every day, how you build really healthy leadership habits. The model is called the DAC model, or the Direction Alignment Commitment Model. And this will just help you brainstorm all the ways that you lead your team every day to be a successful leader. So if you really want to level up your leadership game, this is a great episode for you. Get your notepad out, take lots of notes, and let's get started. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to let you know that we have a bunch of free tools available on our website. And one in particular, I'm going to include down below in the show notes. And it's called the Ultimate Gym Owner Report Card. Often as gym owners, you know that you wear many hats in your business and you're pulled in a million directions and your focus and your energy is split among a million things. So we made you a little report card that you can do in under 10 minutes. And it really helps you assess all the areas of business where you feel like you're really crushing it, the areas of the business that you really haven't developed systems for yet. And so if you are feeling a little stuck from time to time and you need some help figuring out what to focus on next, just go into the show notes, download our Ultimate Gym Owner report card, and start using it right away. It's free and it's yours to use, so enjoy. On the podcast is Mr. Fisher today. Mr. Fisher, how the hell are you? We're recording this early April, so happy April. How's life?
It is good. I'm still recovering from a bachelor party in Vegas. So
that's amazing. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, Vegas has a way of drawing everyone in like a few times per year, whether you want to be drawn in or not.
Yes.
It's part of its magic.
Yes.
Well, let's dive in. We've had a few thoughts and requests recently from both Unicorn Center members and podcast listeners, people asking us for more leadership stuff. So what we want to do today is actually introduce kind of a leadership framework that I think you're actually seeing maybe for one of the first times. So we're going to walk through it together and maybe I'll tee it off like this. So generally speaking, just zooming out, thinking about leadership as a whole, I don't think of leadership as being centered on a person as a leader, right? We often call that, excuse me, I'm coughing. The old school theories of leadership are really about centering leadership like in a person. Right. And that was really called like the kind of the great man theory, that leaders are born, they're not made, and they're born to be these heroic, decisive figures, usually men. And we don't really think about leadership like that anymore. Theories after that really talked about leadership being about the followers. If you want to be a great leader, you have to really craft the right followers and define what does it mean to be a great follower. And often that meant that leadership was about finding people who are willing to follow you because you have some special thing that they really need. Mm-hmm. And in recent years, all the research has really pointed to thinking of leadership more as like a social process. It's a relationship between two or more people. And because we like to think about leadership in that way, we like to think about, okay, what are the things that you do as a leader on a regular basis that help you form what we call like a growth fostering relationship with the people that you want to lead. And there's a really great model that I love. And I know I've introduced this to some Unicorn Center members and they found it really helpful. And Mark and I are going to talk about it today. And it's from this place called the Center for Creative Leadership, which I'm a huge fan of. Go check them out. They do great content. And they have this model called the DAC model, the DAC model. And it's an acronym. It's an acronym for 3 words: direction, alignment, and commitment. And this framework suggests that if you want to create really great growth fostering relationships, your job as a leader in order to create those relationships in part is to make sure that you're providing direction, alignment, and a sense of commitment to the people that you want to lead. So it's a pretty simple idea, excuse me, which is why I like it so much. So what I want to do is kind of talk through it with us all today. And then Mark, you and I can kind of brainstorm what are the ways that we ourselves have created direction, alignment, and commitment with our teams, and what are ways we've seen other Unicorn Society members do. So first, let's kind of start with the direction. Let's define terms. So the Center for Creative Leadership thinks of direction as being the idea that everyone agrees on a vision. Everyone's clear about where the ship is heading. And ideally really clear on a set of specific goals that we're all clear are our goals. And so often things people talk about when they think about direction are things like a vision statement, a mission statement, Values, these are all things that provide direction. Annual goals, quarterly goals or projects or rocks, these are all things that provide direction. But when you think about all that kind of stuff that you've done over the years, Fisher, to provide direction to your teams, what stands out to you as being the most useful?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm understanding this correctly, the direction can have both qualitative and quantitative markers.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think for the values have always been a big thing, right? In part because I've always been interested in business as a lab, if you will, to sort of test the theory of like, what would the world look like if this was the ways we chose to conduct ourselves with each other, and this is how we get the work done together. So I think having a clear set of values, and not just the words, but another thing that we actually just did recently for Business for Unicorns, is a longer document that goes in greater detail, right? Because I think you don't want to have too many values. You want the values to be able to be stated pithily. But if it's just a word, sometimes people actually have very different opinions about what those words mean. So I think having, maybe a 2 to 3 page document that fleshes out the values, what they look like in behavior, what the opposite of those values are, how the values intersect with each other, I think is one thing that I found to be helpful. So if you don't have values, that's something to consider. And if you have values, if you don't have a supporting document to really clarify what you mean in your business by those values, that's, I think, another thing worth considering. Yeah. The second thing on the numbers front that I have found to be valuable is some sort of planning process. So when we work with members of the Unicorn Society, we have one called Frameworks for Unicorns, and we have a system of quarterly planning where you work back from a set of annual goals to work back into not only like weekly goals that'll move you there, but also what are projects that might be done on a quarterly basis that are going to move you there. And then importantly, I think to make that real world, having some sort of, and I might be jumping to one of the other ones yet because I don't know this model, but having some sort of weekly meeting polls to sort of stay accountable to make sure that the weekly numbers and the projects are moving forward towards the annual goal, as well as some sort of quarterly pulse, which is a bigger picture deep dive where you step out of the business, you look at how the quarter went and assess how are you doing on the path to your stated goal for the year. So those are two that come to mind.
Yeah, I think it's really critical. I think it's good to have a mix of kind of qualitative and quantitative things, like a clarity of how do we want the business to like look and feel in terms of culture and values, I think is super critical, as we all know. And also getting clear about like, okay, what actually does growth look like in terms of revenue, number of employees, hours worked in the business by the owner, right? All those things we know are critical. And when we don't provide direction as a leader, then we don't have a agreed upon priorities. Right. People feel pulled in different directions. And so when there's not a clear direction, sometimes people are working against each other or stepping on toes, right? Or there's a real battle for who gets to decide direction when the leadership, there's a leadership vacuum. And then people are advocating for different directions all at the same time. And so I think all those things you said, I think are really critical. And I think it's a really important, you can see how clear it is that having good direction on a team contributes to having positive relationships.
Yes.
Right. Like yes. I'm more likely to want to come to work and see my fellow coworkers and collaborate with them and spend time with them if I feel like our efforts are all pointing in the same direction. Right. And if not, it becomes a recipe for like, infighting and silos and all that, which we know sucks. So that's the first one, D for direction. The second one's alignment. I think you started to get into a little bit of alignment, but alignment is really just about everybody being clear about their roles and responsibilities, that the work kind of feels coordinated, right? That we know this is your lane, this is my lane, and this is where our lanes intersect. These are the things we have to do together. These are the things we can do separately. And when there's not alignment, this is often where deadlines are missed. We have to redo work because it was done by the wrong person or in the wrong way at the wrong time, or there's a duplication of effort where like, we're, like I said, we're stepping on each other's toes because it wasn't clear. I own this or you own this. And I think where this stands out a lot in terms of alignment is alignment on who are the decision makers. Right. For certain things. I think that's often where the rubber meets the road is like, yeah, we all have opinions and maybe we have a very collaborative environment where everyone gets to share. But who gets to decide? And that's something we struggle with, even with Business for Unicorns from time to time. It's like we're really good at creating a collaborative environment where our voices get heard and we have to share. But when does that end? Who is the person that says, okay, I've heard everyone's thoughts. Here's what we're going to do. I know that, both of us struggle with that in MFF years. And it's an ongoing challenge, but I think that's a part of why, again, alignment is such a critical piece of this. So,
hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. If you haven't had a chance yet to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast, it would be so awesome if you take just a quick second to do that. And here's why. Number one, by leaving us a rating and review, you'll allow our podcast audience to grow so more gym owners can build a life and a gym they love. And number two, by leaving us feedback, you'll help us shape the future of the podcast so we know what you like, we know what you don't like, and we know what types of content is resonating and what else should we create for you. Thank you so much for your consideration. And now back to the show.
Critical piece of this. So let's talk about some ways that we create that alignment, clear roles and responsibilities. What's worked for you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the thing that I think we have done pretty well over the years when we've noticed this tension, and I want to get back to what a typical gym owner might do because it might be different.
Yeah.
Because our businesses have been larger, it has often made sense to put various people in various leadership seats and be like, okay, you make the final call for marketing or sales or finance or operations or the training product, right? So, and if you've even read eMyth, they do a similar exercise, which is probably even more relevant to the gym owner because if any of you has ever read it, one of the stories they use about people making a business into systems, they have two founders get put in different seats and they make the case that one person can be in multiple seats, but you can't have two person in one seat.
Yep.
And I think that's a very important takeaway because in a typical gym, you're not going to have one person in charge of marketing and another in charge of sales and another in charge of X.
Yep.
So we often have been in the case where we've had a lot of different people in the different seats, which does make things easier for decision making because you know, okay, this person, both other people know to respect, okay, that's the person that's going to make the final call there. I'm going to opt out. And even importantly, I think for us, a lot of the real benefit has been giving ourselves the freedom, like, oh, I'm allowed to make this call here and just run with it because this is my seat. I'm curious if you can maybe speak a little to how a trainer in, let's say, a more typical gym where maybe they have like 2 or 3, full-time trainers and maybe very part-time admin, how they might leverage this particular part of this framework.
Yeah, 100%. I'll start with something like the most basic, which a lot of people just don't do, which is actually writing down what everyone's roles and responsibilities are, like in an actual document. And then when they change, going in and changing them, right? Because even if it's just a list of here are the things you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. Here are the things that you're responsible for doing in terms of KPIs. Here are the ones you're responsible for, right? Like making it clear what people's jobs actually are in writing seems very simple, right? Like kind of maybe like a duh. But I talk to people all the time who've been open for years and don't have roles and responsibilities written down in a way that people can refer to them. Or they did at one point and they've changed 100 times since. So no one looks at that document because it completely does not represent reality anymore. And so making sure that it's really written down. I think the other thing that I think is important, if you have a team of 1 or a team of 1,000, is that part of the act of leading and managing, which have a lot of overlap, is really checking in on how things are going and maintaining the thing you agreed to. So one thing to set someone's roles and responsibilities. It's another thing to make sure they're continuing to deliver on said roles and responsibilities over time. And that's where typically one-on-one meetings are like a container in which those conversations happen. And so making sure you have a clear agenda for your one-on-one meetings that talks through the most critical parts of someone's role that they uniquely own. So if you have someone on your team who, and this is true for a lot of gyms, even if you have a small team, you usually have like maybe someone on your team who kind of owns social media, as an example. And you created or program design. There's like these little buckets that are pretty common in gyms that some trainer usually owns as like a side project or a thing they do off the floor. And even just clarifying what you're doing on social media and when and how. And then in our one-on-one meetings, check in and saying, okay, you're supposed to post 5 times a week. Let's look at last week. Let's look at your post. Did you post the right number of times, the right quality of content, following your SOP for how to do that, right? And so I think it's that kind of thing that maintains the alignment, not just to get to aligned, we're all agreed on what you do and when and how, but it maintains it over time when it's very easy for that role creep to set in.
Yep. Yeah. You must inspect what you expect.
Yeah, exactly. So anything else to say on alignment? I think that we covered some good strategies there.
No. Yeah. I think that's good.
So we got direction, alignment, and the last C is commitment. So commitment is, in a nutshell, buy-in. And buy-in has lots of layers, right? Getting a team to buy in involves thinking about their motivation, their intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for what motivates them to actually want to participate. It also includes both like responsibility and accountability, right? So more than alignment, this is actually making sure that people are being a team player, that everyone contributes to the group's success, that there's trust, that everyone on the team is all on the same page about. We're all committed to the group's overall goals. And when this is not in place, when we don't have a great sense of buy-in or commitment from the team, only the easy things get done, right? No one ever really is.
Right.
It does the hard stuff. No one ever does the stuff that no one wants to do. There's no commitment to like sucking it up and just getting it done. And then, there's also a sense of kind of real individualism that sneaks in when you don't have commitment to the team, that everyone's kind of out for themselves. And you can see very easily again how that kind of environment does not form great relationships. Right. When everyone on the team is just looking out for themselves and what's in it for me and protecting their own space, and there's a battle to keep things off my plate, right? There's not that sense of like, sometimes I just need to suck it up for the benefit of the team. We don't have that commitment. I'm sure there's a million sports analogies that I'm not qualified to make here, but I remember even just as a kid from playing football for a while, we would in practice, I'll practice all the plays, but I full well knew that when I got onto the field, I didn't get to decide which ones we did. Right. Right. The quarterback decided, and we all just like did it without asking any questions. There was no debate in the huddle about, it was like we all agreed. We had commitment to who's going to be the decision maker, and our role in it was to run our part of the play. And without that, it would have been more hectic than it was playing 10-year-old football. Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to getting people all on the same page to have like a sense of mutual trust and mutual responsibility to the team, what have you seen that works over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because what's immediately coming to mind is kind of the first things we had sort of talked about originally. I think, certainly one thing that we maybe haven't discussed yet is that when you get weigh-in, you get buy-in, right? Yes. In the sense of like, if I have the opportunity to contribute to how this work is going to get done, even if we don't do it the way that I want, if I really feel like my thoughts were really like meaningfully considered, once I have felt that I have weighed in, I'm more likely to buy in. Yeah. So, certainly an example of that would be, and again, you have to decide, pick your battles here. I'm not sure you can be collaborative in every micro decision a gym is going to make, but inviting people to be part of the process of decision making, and to some extent even choosing the actual goals themselves, while making it clear that ultimately the leader does have to be the tiebreaker. So that's what comes to mind. Yeah, I'm wondering if you can sort of talk through again how this might look for a typical smaller gym, and specifically examples of how we could see this going wrong on a small gym.
100%. Well, I think you're right that I think this does connect back to alignment. I think these all have like a Venn diagram kind of vibe, the three of these things together, right? And then when people are asked about their opinions and feel like they have some say in where the business is going, they're going to be more likely to want to go along for the ride and contribute to that journey than if they weren't. But I'll also say that a very small step that everyone listening can take is actually just inviting a conversation about what part, so let's say I manage a team of 2 people. As part of our one-on-ones or part of my onboarding with them, getting clear about what work do they like and what work do they not like, right? Even just knowing that I'm going to be asking you to do something that you really hate is useful. I know that you're not intrinsically motivated to do this thing. So can I maybe provide some external motivation, or can at the very least balance what else is on your plate with things you like more, or I keep going, or help you organize your time so that you have to eat that frog, so to speak, right? At a time of your day when you're most likely to be able to do something you don't want to, right? And so I think even just managing someone by helping them think through what's on your plate that you like or don't like, what are you motivated to do and not motivated to do. Having that conversation lets you, help them and support them better as a manager and a leader. Yeah. And teams in general should have that conversation. Hey, this is project, a good one. No one wants to do a software change of any kind in any business,
Yep.
right? Moving from mind body to something else, no one is excited to do that project, right? And so how you navigate people's feelings around a project like that is absolutely going to contribute to its success or failure, right? And so I think that's part of like getting commitment not to the easy stuff that everyone likes doing, but getting commitment to the hard things that no one wants to do is a big part of what leaders do. Is we sell the idea of where we're going and help you maybe not get excited about it, but at least figure out how to navigate getting it done anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that specific enough? I could probably get more specific, but
yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think that's clear.
Yeah. So I think, that's the model. It's that simple. It's really just thinking through, like, if you really want to create great relationships with the people you manage, thinking about what are the ways in which you create direction, alignment, and commitment. I did this exercise earlier with Unicorn Side members, but go just set an alarm for 10 minutes and just write down for yourself, my approach to creating direction on my team is what? My approach to creating alignment on my team is what? My approach to creating commitment on my team is what? And you'll start to develop, this is what kind of, among other things you could add to that list, this is part of what your leadership style is. This is your approach, right? This is the toolbox that you're developing as a leader for how you do leadership. And the research shows that, when those things are present, leadership is present, right? Those things, leadership is an outcome of this social, interaction we have with people. And when we have those things present, then we're building strong relationships that are going to stand the test of time, hopefully. Yeah. Anything else you would add to that?
No, I'm happy to learn about this framework and model. Yeah, it's useful.
It's fun. It's easy. It helps put some of the things that we do as leaders into buckets that we can think strategically about. All right, friends. Well, hope this was valuable to you. As always, keep on listening to the podcast and go into the Slack chat box down below and the show notes. I call it the chat box. Into the show notes. That's what they're called. And go get that free resource we talked about, because it's there waiting for you, and it's going to be very useful for you figuring out how to have some new direction in what you're spending your time on. Thanks, Fisher. I'll see you in the next one.
Bye.